Yo, what is going on, guys? J.Yumeko here, and today we're here with The Shell Part 1 Inferno. Now, normally I would have recorded a Clannad video, but as you know, we finished up Fuko's route. We're not done with Clannad. We're going to take a very small break from it before we jump into one of those other routes. Specifically, Nagisa's is what we're going to do. We're actually going to properly finish up Nagisa's route. But in the meantime, I thought I'd take this opportunity to introduce a new series onto the channel. Again, Shell Inferno. As per usual with my kind of motto here, I have no idea what this game is about. All I know is what I've read off of the Steam page. And yeah, we're kind of jumping into this blind. As far as I know, I think I remember the Steam page saying something about it being like not a detective thing, but kind of like a mystery type deal. Past that, I have no fucking clue. I know that there is a second game as well. I'm not sure about a third game. But, hey, let's just jump into it. What do you say? I do think that there is, voice volume. Yeah, here we go, voice volume. So, let's see. Voice continues playing after advancing. Individual character. Yeah, so there is character voices. Wow, that is a lot of characters. Okay. Oh, we can voice test?
Tokisaka yukari desu.
Oh, there we go. Alright, so, you guys, well, you seem to enjoy me leaving the voices on in Clannad. I actually did enjoy it as well. So we're going to go ahead and kind of roll with that for right now. So let's start it up. The Egg of Neanis, Part 2. Shin Katsuragi. The girl traded a small black egg for a torso, right arm, right leg, and left leg. However, she still lacked a head. She looked around, but there was no one to be found. "Oh dear, what am I to do? Mother will never be whole now," lamented the girl. Even if she wanted to get her hands on another's head, it could never share her mother's face. "Oh mother, where could your face be?" she asked a large black egg, but there was no answer. "Oh mother, my mother is in this shell. Could your face perhaps be in there?" Once that notion took hold, the girl could wait no longer. She placed the giant black egg on the earth before raising a giant black stone. "Cease this at once. You mustn't break the shell." But the mother's voice failed to penetrate the shell and reach the girl's ears. The girl swung the giant stone down. With a resounding crack, the large black egg fractured, pieces cracking off. "Mother, where could you be?" The girl peeled the cracked egg as she gazed into it. However, all she found was a goopy red liquid. "Mother, where are you?" The girl stuck her hand into the sanguine fluid and stirred it around, yet never felt her mother's head. The liquid leaked out through the cracks in the egg, staining the surrounding earth crimson with each passing second. "No, my mother is spilling out!" The girl frantically fell to her hands and knees, but alas, it was too late. The ground had already absorbed far too much of the red fluid. "No, no, mother!" The girl wept as she screamed for her mother over and over again, but her mother would never return. The girl sobbed until she had no tears left to shed. Eventually, she rose to her feet, eyes parched as a desert. Alongside her were the broken black egg and her mother's headless body. "I must find mother," muttered the girl, excavating the earth that had guzzled the red liquid which had once been her mother before burying the black eggshell and headless body there. And thus she set out again in search of her mother. Well, that's something right there, huh? That's the way to open a game up. A long journey beginning in purgatory, a grieving soul traverses hell and eventually reaches heaven. O he who seeks the truth and aims for the summit. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Classic. Psychological test. Provazione.
私は絵を描くのが好きだ。描いている時は何もかも忘れていられるから。 無心で白いカンバスに向かう。そうすれば描きたいものが頭の中に浮かんでくるような気がして、今私の周りには何もない。人も空気もしがらみも何もかも。ただこの世界に私一人という感覚。鉛筆を動かす。まだ形は見えないけれど、いつかきっとこの白い世界を私の色で埋め尽くせるような気がして。
Okay. Oh wow. 1956, January 14th, Moon's Age, one new moon, springtide. Dang, 1956, damn. The auditorium silent as a grave, the air fraught with tension, the girls praying fervently with all their being. The trepidation looming over the auditorium was by no means solely the work of the silence. Before the girls was a giant cross. They stood in the auditorium of Oba Girls Academy, which also served as a chapel. Even the cold January air was hardly a specter in their minds, for an even colder atmosphere dominated the room. Yukari Tokisaka gingerly opened her eyes and scanned her surroundings. Oh. Everyone was praying to the cross with their eyes shut tight. Yukari soon locked eyes with the student next to her. The girl was Suzuriko Yosomiya, one of the few friends Yukari had made in the school. The vice principal remonstrated Suzuriko, I'm gonna have to get used to saying that name, remonstrated Suzuriko in a low murmur. Suzuriko obediently lowered her head, only to turn to Yukari and playfully stick out her tongue.
戦争より10年が経過し、また新しい年を迎えました。私たちは過去の反省を踏まえ、これから我が国の将来を背負ってゆかねばなりません。
The student council president's clear voice reverberated through the auditorium. Mass had ended, and the opening ceremony for the new semester had begun. Orihime Tsukushima, the student council president, sonorously recited her speech in a euphonious voice. Many of her peers looked up to her, and Suzuriko was no exception. Yukari glanced at Suzuriko out of the corner of her eye to find that her friend was hanging on to Orihime's every word. The older girl must have held a certain appeal, though Yukari didn't quite understand it herself.
神の御心のままに我々も精進せねばなりません。
The auditorium roared with applause, and Yukari followed suit for formality's sake.
松組から順に教室へ戻りなさい。
Dang, one at a time. Oh, okay then. The students filed out in accordance with the teacher's instructions. Interesting, a Christian school setting. That is a Christian school setting in 1956. That's very unique. That is very unique. Suzuriko wasted no time running her mouth as soon as they reached the classroom.
ねえねえゆかり、やっぱり織姫様って凛としてて素敵だよね。
Let me turn the music down because that is kind of loud. I don't want to lower it too much just because I don't want to like mess around too heavily with the audio.
そうね。
Yukari didn't fawn over Orihime like Suzuriko did, but she had to admit the older girl had a charm to her that the rest of their peers didn't. Orihime was only a little older than Yukari, yet her charisma far exceeded any other students. Yukari had to tip her hat when she realized just how many fans Orihime had in this girls-only school. That included Suzuriko, even though she seemed like the last person Yukari would expect to admire Orihime. Yukari shot her friend a pensive glance. Suzuriko Yosomiya was a bookworm, as well as an author talented enough to be published in popular literary magazines, though she kept that hush from the school, seeing how their strict regulations forbade anyone from engaging in literary activities such as writing. What's more, Suzuriko wrote not only mainstream fare, but even lewd stories for uncouth magazines. Oh, okay, she's a bit... I think she'd be very popular on like Wattpad. Yukari had never read any of those, as Suzuriko had said she needn't bother. and Yukari wasn't one to disregard her friend's wishes.
ゆかりんどうしたの？私の顔じっと見ちゃって。
なんでもないわ。
Yukari shook her head as she turned away from Suzuriko.
ほら、草加先生が来たわよ。
Yukari faced the front of the classroom, retreating with that convenient excuse.
皆さん、おはようございます。
Tatsuhiko Kostaka, their homeroom teacher, entered the classroom.
本日授業はありませんが、これからしばらくの時間、学年主任の先生に学生としての過ごし方を指導してもらいます。
It felt like the school had been drilling educational guidance into the students' every waking moment these days, but perhaps that was only inevitable. After all, Oba Girls Academy had a reputation to uphold. It had been a bastion of learning here in Masashino since the era of westernization, and educating many ladies from respectable families. Therefore, its regulations were strict. What was that? I think that was the Meiji area, right? Because they had the whole Meiji restoration. So I'm pretty sure that was like their kind of westernization and modernization project that they underwent. They ranged from wearing school uniforms off campus to restricting visits to shopping districts such as Kichijoji and Shinjuku without a chaperone. Even minor day-to-day activities such as speaking to US military personnel were forbidden. Yukari didn't mention them. She wasn't the kind to disobey the rules after all. She merely wasn't fond of how often the school wasted her time by making her review them.
聞いているのですか、口木さん。
Yukari's head shot up when she heard the teacher's shrill, high-strung voice.
聞いています。
The reprimanded student, one Toko Kuchiki, a member of the art club just like Yukari, replied in a dignified manner.
こちらを向きなさい。
She a baddie for real. It seemed Toko had been staring out the window, only glancing at the podium out of the corner of her eye. Toko Kuchiki was an eccentric girl, to put it mildly. That said, even her fellow girls envied her slender frame, smooth skin, and silky sleek hair black as the night.
なんですかその目は。睨みつけたりなんかして。
睨んでなどい
Oh,
ませ
she a
ん。
bad bitch! She a bad bitch! Okay! Toko protested in an aloof tone. She truly hadn't been glaring at all. Though Yukari could only catch a tiny glimpse of her face from that angle, Toko looked as cool as a cucumber, at least from where Yukari was sitting. It was almost like she had no idea she was being scolded. The other girls were all elegantly seated as if they were worlds away, so the sight was almost alien.
そこで立っていなさい。
The teacher thrust her pointer at Toko's chest before returning to the podium. Yukari's eyes danced around the classroom, and the next seat over was Suzuriko, resting her chin in her hands like she was about to die of boredom. While Toko was hanging her head as she stood, her upright posture quickly faltering.
口木さん。
Toko struggled to raise her head. Her face was white as a sheet. And a moment after they locked eyes... Oh!
Toko!
The nearest student, Toko's best friend, Toko Mizuhara, darted over to the collapsed girl. Well, you have two Tokos, but hers has like an accent over it, so... Because it'd be Toko... Wouldn't hers still be Toko? Maybe that doesn't change the pronunciation. Maybe that just changes the meaning? Interesting.
しらじらしい真似を。放っておきなさい。
Yeah, well, you're not going to be saying that when she fucking drops dead one of these days, now are you?
そんな。
Toko raised her voice upon hearing the teacher's curt dismissal.
私なら大丈夫。
Yukari rose to her feet, unable to just sit back and watch another second.
保健室へ連れて行きます。
あなたは？
保健委員です。
Yukari walked over to Toko after answering the teacher's skeptical question.
口木さん。
That's right, we to go. We to go, baby. Rebel against the machine. Toko staggered to her feet as Toko... See, we got two... Surely there's... hold up, I gotta search this up. Surely there's a different pronunciation. Let's see. Pronunciation of... Toko. With a long O sound similar to Toko, with a slight emphasis on the first syllable. Let's see. Meaning and pronunciation. Here we go. Girl name, meaning, and pronunciation. It's a Japanese name with a rich cultural heritage and strong, elegant sound. It's primarily a feminine name, yada yada yada. Oh, its meaning deeply intertwined with Japanese nature and spirituality. Yeah, it's a name that carries a sense of grace and strength. Okay. So it's to. The emphasis is on the first syllable, and the second syllable is pronounced like ko. What? So it's like the same thing. So it's Toko versus Toko. Huh. Apparently means sunrise, east, dawn. Something like that. But then how do you pronounce this regular time? I'm getting so fucking sidetracked here, but I really need to know this. I have to know this.
Toko.
Okay, that didn't help. Toko. So I guess it's just both Toko. Toko and Toko. Okay. Well.
私も
いけません。水原さんは席に戻りなさい。
保健室へ行きます。
Yukari lent Toko a shoulder and left the classroom. Toko's eyes boring into the pair all the way. God, okay, whatever. We're not gonna fight that.
大丈
So
夫
the
です
two girls named Toko just so happen to be best friends. Yukari and Toko slowly proceeded down the hallway.
ただの
God, this music is really loud. Like, normally these things are loud, sure, but like, this is exceptionally loud. This is gonna be a bitch to like mix the audio. Okay. Yeah, probably Sanimi, that's all. Toko panted, leaning against Yukari.
だからもう戻っても大丈夫。
No, yeah, sorry, Max. Damn, really? Voice settings are already all the way up.
そんな
Granted, my volume is probably pretty low. Yeah, I have my volume already pretty low. Toko didn't look the least bit okay. She couldn't even stand on her own 2 feet.
もうすぐ保健室ですから。
Oh yeah, that is comparatively a lot louder. Okay. The music is still really loud though. So Yukari ignored Toko and brought her to the infirmary. Once there, Yukari lowered Toko onto the bed. Toko took a deep breath and closed her eyes.
今保健の先生が来ると思うから。
Hopefully. Yukari comforted Toko as she straightened out the sheets.
ええ、
Yukari felt Toko's forehead. It didn't seem like she had a fever.
朽木さん、
Damn!
具合はどう？
Hello? Mommy, ma'am? The door opened, and a second later, the school nurse, Nani Akazaki, strolled in.
だいぶ良くなりました。
Toko mumbled from under the covers.
では私はこれで。
Yukari bowed and was about to leave when Akazaki stopped her.
時坂さん、もうすぐ放課後になるから、ここにいても構わないわよ。
Dang, she a baddie? And she's like in touch with the students? Oh my god. Hey, if you're looking for a husband, I'm open. I'm free.
ですけど。
朽木さんのそばにいてあげてちょうだい。
Yukari glanced at Toko. The latter was looking back at her with shaky eyes that seemed to scream she could use a friend.
わかりました。
Yukari nodded and plopped down onto a stool.
ごめんなさい。
いいのよ。
Yukari smiled at Toko. Everyone felt anxious when sick, no exceptions. Yukari understood that well since she wasn't exactly the picture of health herself. She knew she was grateful and relieved to have her brother by her side whenever she was bedridden with her fever.
終わったみたいね。
Let's go! Akazaki muttered, facing the desk. Yukari gave Toko a once-over. Toko was breathing peacefully with her eyes shut. Figuring Toko was in the clear now, Yukari quietly rose to her feet. Toko! Damn, bitch! Suddenly, Toko burst into the infirmary.
水原さん。
Toko dashed over to Toko's bed, panting like mad. She must have came running as soon as the bell rang.
大丈夫、どこ？え、
Toko feebly opened her eyes.
朝食を抜いたのがいけなかったのかな。
Unfortunately, Toko didn't seem the least bit amused by Toko's joke.
本当に心配
I hope that I hope at some point they pronounce Mizuhara's name, so I know like actually how to pronounce it, if there even is a difference in pronunciation.
ちゃんと食べなきゃダメよ。
Akazaki chided Toko with a small smile on her face.
そうですね。
It appeared Toko really had been sick with worry about Toko. Yukari wondered if it had something to do with how their names were pronounced the same. Oh my god! There you go. Well, thank you, game, for answering my question that was really fucking bugging me. Alright, they're pronounced the same, huh? It must just be a difference in meaning then. Or something, I don't know. Maybe it's just there to, like, look fancy. Though Toko was also a member of the art club, she rarely spoke to Yukari in class or during club hours. Perhaps it was because both of them were quiet and inconspicuous creatures. In contrast, Toko stuck out like a sore thumb. There we go. She was more or less the same as Yukari when it came to their quiet demeanors. Yet Toko Kuchiki's very existence resembled a beautiful flower in comparison. She's like a sterling lily in full bloom, Tsutsuriko had once said of her. And honestly, Yukari understood that sentiment. Toko exuded the air of a one-in-a-million flower no one could ever dare pluck from its roots. Toko was the only one who dared stick with her, not that Yukari was one to talk when she had Tsutsuriko constantly by her side. Just then, Toko glared sternly at Yukari.
時坂さん、トーコには私がついているからもういいわよ。
Damn, bitch, sorry, I'll leave you two alone. Toko occupied the stool Yukari had vacated and took Toko's hand in her own.
それでは私はこれで。
Just gonna fucking... it would have been nicer to just tell me to fuck off, really. Yukari left the infirmary to find Tsutsuriko waiting for her.
はい、ゆかりのカバン。
ありがとう。
Tsutsuriko handed Yukari her bag, grinning without a care in the world.
元気なさそうだけど、どうしたの？
そう。
Yukari touched her own cheeks to check, only to belatedly realize there was no way she could tell what her face was betraying by doing so.
気のせいだったかな。
Tsutsuriko scratched her cheek with an embarrassed smile on her face. She was probably being considerate of Yukari, a trait the latter greatly appreciated.
ありがとう、つづり子。
Thus, Yukari thanked her, in a voice so quiet that the slightest whisper of wind would have drowned it out. Yukari went to the art room after saying her goodbyes to Tsutsuriko.
時坂先輩、おはようございます。
A girl already stood there and greeted Yukari. She was Yui Nishizono, Yukari's underclassman and fellow art club member.
おはよう、西園さん。
Yukari returned the salutations and placed her art supplies on the desk.
時坂先輩も始業式から部活に出るんですね。
家にいる間全然描けなかったから。
Yukari pulled out her pencil and checked its sharpness, wondering if it'd be best to shave it down a little with the pocket knife first.
忙しかったんですか？
そうね。物草の兄が年末年始に何もしてくれなかったから。
大変ですね。
Yui gave her a little shrug in response before displaying her own art supplies on the desk.
両親が亡くなってから随分経つから、もう慣れてしまったけれどね。
Ah, so the parents are dead.
そうだったんですか。
気にしなくてもいいのよ。
私も似たような。
Yui's words were interrupted by the clattering of the art room's door.
ゆいいる？あ、時坂先輩。
A girl peeked her head through the door and bowed to Yukari. Her name was Ayumu Sato, a freshman in the kendo club. She stopped by the art club frequently since she and Yui were friends. As such, it was only natural that she'd gotten acquainted with Yukari and the rest of the club.
佐藤さん、剣道部は？
今日は休みなんですよ。
Ayumu placed her bag down.
冬休み中ずっと部活がありましたから、始業式くらいは休みにしようって。
ずっと。お正月も？
さすがに元日はお休みでしたけれど、2日からはずっとです。
Ayumu said that as if it were only a matter of fact.
剣道部って大変なのね。部活動だけだったらいいのだけれど、ずっと先輩に引っ張り回されていたから。ああ、歩夢は人気があるもの仕方ないと思うわよ。お手洗いにまでついてこなくてもいい。
Apparently, some people were just into that, though Yukari couldn't quite wrap her head around why. Wait, what did they say? My seniors kept dragging me around everywhere too. I see, which is, well, such is a price of popularity. I doubt that merits follow me into the bathroom though. Got it. Some people were just into that.
美術部は休み中に集まることはなかったわね。自主活動だけで。
Not that Yukari had actually done any herself, that said.
私は少しだけだったらみかんとか鏡餅とかのスケッチだけですけれど。あ、そうだ歩夢、今度モデルをやってくれないかな。モデル？ええ、もちろんヌードでね。
Let's
先輩たち
go!
には評判になると思うんだ。
Yui's my kind of girl. You know, we got the same things going on right here.
別にいいけど高いよ。いくらなら脱ぐ？2万円くらいかな。ほら、去年トランジスタラジオが発売されたじゃない。ラジオか。私だったらテレビの方が欲しいかな。
テレビよりも先月出た電気炊飯器が欲しいわ。兄さんに頼もうかしら。
先輩って家庭的ですよね。
家にいるとそうなってしまうのよ。
かもしれませんね。
Yui nodded.
家にいる時でも時間を見つけてカタツムリを描いていればよかったわ。
カタツムリですか。
Yui inched back ever so slightly.
ええ、突然変異で右巻きになった左巻きマイマイを飼っているの。
右巻きで左巻き。
Eh? Ayumu blinked repeatedly.
時坂先輩は虫とかが好きだから。
Yui smoothed things over with an awkward smile.
春になればもっと描けるのに。家の近くに大きな池があるからそこでゲンゴロウやタニシを集めるのよ。
Cybister japonicus.
ゲンゴロウってなんだかゴキブリみたいじゃありません？
全然違うわよ。ゲンゴロウは甲虫だし、ゴキブリに近いのはむしろカマキリやシロアリだから。
シロアリはアリじゃないんですか？
軍隊で行動するところが似ているだけよ。アリの幼虫はウジ虫のような形だけれど、シロアリは成虫に近い外見で生まれてくるの。
あまり聞きたくないです。
Yui swiftly shielded her ears.
昆虫学の勉強にもなると思うのだけど、残念ね。
We love entomology.
そういう問題ではないと思います。
そう？
とにかくどこかにスケッチに行ければいいのですけれどね。
Yui hastily changed the topic. Clearly, she did not share her schoolmates' fondness for insects.
まだ寒いから写生をするなら春になってからかしらね。
Yukari glanced out the window. Though no snow had piled up, the trees had shed their leaves and were shivering in the cold.
ですけど、さっき校庭で朽木先輩が絵を描いていましたよ。
朽木さんが？
Though Toko drawing on her own was nothing new, it was surprising that she'd already made a full recovery, considering she'd been resting in the infirmary not too long ago. Well, maybe that's why she was passing out. She's sitting out there in the freezing cold.
水原さんはいなかった？
水原先輩ですか？すみません。わからないです。
Ayumu apologetically bowed her head.
そう。
Yukari stood up and headed for the door, worried about whether Toko could handle the cold all by herself.
時坂さん、ちょうどよかった。
草加先生。
Yukari swiftly leaned back to avoid bumping into Kusaka as he entered the art room.
先ほどの生活指導の印刷物を渡すのを忘れていましたから。
あ、わざわざありがとうございます、先生。
She took the handout and bowed.
朽木さんはまだ保健室ですか？
Kusaka curiously glanced around the room.
佐藤さんの話では校庭にいるようですけれど、私が渡しましょうか？
そうですね。
Kusaka passed Yukari another handout.
それではよろしくお願いします、時坂さん。
Kusaka turned around and left the art room.
ちょっと朽木さんのところへ行ってくるわね。
Yui looked up with a dazed expression on her face.
はい、わかりました。
それじゃあ、お留守番よろしくね。
Yukari bade farewells to Yui and Ayumu before heading for the schoolyard. A nippy breeze cut through the broad area. Yukari headed for the shade of the school building, wishing she'd remembered to wear a coat. Toko was sitting there, face to face with an easel. She was so focused that Yukari simply stood in place, unable to bring herself to say a word to her classmate. Toko wasn't there. She must have excused herself so she wouldn't distract Toko. However, Toko's canvas remained as white as the virgin snow.
朽木さん、
ああ、時坂さんか。
Toko looked up.
プリントを渡しておいてと頼まれたから。
ありがとう。
もう大丈夫なの？
時坂さんには心配をかけてしまったようだね。
Yeah, kinda. Oh. Ugh. Toko glanced up at Yukari and shot her a small grin. It was a look that almost stopped the heart of even a fellow girl like Yukari. Perhaps it was because of her masculine way of talking. Even though her appearance was the epitome of a delicate young maiden, her speech patterns stood in stark contrast to that. Maybe that was why Yukari was taken by that disparity.
まだ何か用？
何を書こうとしているのか少し気になって。
そうだね。私にもまだわからないよ。
Toko stared at the blank canvas.
書きたいものがまだ見つかっていないのかもしれないね。
焦る必要はないと思うけれど。
It wasn't like this was for homework after all. The art club was merely a gathering of students who enjoyed drawing. Vice Principal Saiki, the club's advisor, said all that mattered was that they had fun.
そうだね。ゆっくり考えるかな。
Toko stowed her pencil and got up.
時坂さんはこれからどうするの？
私は新宿にいる兄のところに行くつもりだけれど。
Yukari said exactly what was on her mind.
そうか。お兄さんは探
There
偵
you
だっ
go.
たっけ？
There's that mystery thing that I was talking about. Surely that's what's gonna lead to.
ええ、家ではあまり役に立たないけれど。
Yukari answered Toko's question with a weary smile on her face.
まあいいや。私はもう行くよ。時坂さん、また明日。
ええ、また明日。
Yukari took the Chowa line from Musashi Sakai to Shinjuku. Jesus Lord Almighty. School regulations forbade them from visiting any shopping districts. Yet Yukari still visited the area because the brothers' detective agency was located in a building not too far from the station. She left through the east exit, bought a dumpling from Nakamura-ya, and made her way down a narrow alley. The Chick's building posted read, Tokisaka Detective Agency. The place was run by Reiji Tokisaka, Yukari's brother, though naturally it only amounted to a single room in this building.
兄さん、いますか？
She received no answer. Yukari pulled a brass key out of her bag and put it in the keyhole, figuring he was probably out working. Whoa, Jesus Portal. That is just a fucking mess. It looks like somebody came in and ransacked the place. Yukari sighed a deep sigh the moment she saw the room. The floor was practically buried under scraps of paper. Furthermore, a murky ochre liquid had been coagulating in a drinking glass on the table for who knew how long, and the haphazardly abandoned pieces of toast on the plate were probably moldy by this point. Yukari had been there just before the new year, yet her brother had done an impressive job of reducing her painstaking efforts all to ruin in 2 short weeks.
少しは自分で片付けることもすればいいのに。
Yukari grumbled despite knowing the target of her complaints wasn't anywhere in earshot. She then placed her bag on the sofa and decided to start cleaning the room. I think that's what I said. No, I did not mean to say that. Her first order of business was gathering up all the papers on the floor. However, she couldn't afford to carelessly throw any of them away, so some may be important work documents after all. So instead, she crouched down, straightened out the papers, and neatly folded them. Ominous scribblings of words like murder and kidnapping littered the documents here and there. As usual, her brother was throwing himself headfirst into the most dangerous of cases and little else. She wished he'd play it safe and stick to jobs like finding lost dogs instead, especially considering the man in question had said he was more of a scholar than a fighter. While he had indeed spent time in the military and the police, her brother was still the sensitive type at the end of the day. Yukari stacked the papers onto the desk and moved to clean the table next. She took the plate of moldy toast and dumped it into the garbage. Afterwards, she took the drinking glass, poured its contents down the drain, and carefully washed it. Several fractured milky white shells were strewn across the sink. Perhaps that liquid in the glass had in fact been eggs, meaning he was likely drinking them raw, a thought that made Yukari cringe. Thus, she picked them up and threw them into the trash, gripping them so tight that they cracked with a resounding snap.
あとは。
Yukari took another look around the room and found a pile of dirty clothes haphazardly heaped into a corner. She couldn't very well do laundry here though, so bringing them home was her only choice.
匂わなければいいけれど。
Yukari grumbled as she folded up her brother's shirts and underwear. She turned around when she heard the familiar clack of the agency door.
あ、おかえりなさい、兄さん。
Oh. The brother. POV oh shit, POV change. Okay, that's interesting.
何をしているんだ、ゆかり。
洗って汚れが落ちるかどうか考えていたのよ。少しは自分でお掃除したらどうですか？
忙しいんだよ。
I gave the first excuse that came to mind before hanging my jacket off a chair and sitting down. A look around the agency revealed that it was a hell of a lot cleaner. No, it had just gone back to the way it was a few weeks ago. I was one big-ass slob, no questioning that. Picturing how the place would look without Yukari's periodic cleaning sessions gave me the chills.
いつもすまないな。
いいのよ。兄さんはお仕事で忙しいのでしょうから。
Yukari finished folding and took out a paper bag.
はい、中華まん。少し冷めてしまったけれど。
構わないさ。いただくよ。
I was starting to get hungry, and Nakamoriya's dumplings were tasty even when cold, so she got no complaints from me.
兄さん、お仕事は順調？
一両日中には型がつきそうだ。
I munched on my dumpling. There was this case involving the murder of a millionaire over his inheritance that had been working ever since the end of last year. I determined the culprit, so all that was left was to notify the police to get that son of a bitch behind bars.
危険ではないの？
There was a nervous edge to Yukari's voice.
ただの調査に危険なことなんてないさ。
I gave a disarming smile. No job was ever safe for certain. You never knew around which corners dangers was lurking. I knew a guy had been reduced to Swiss cheese over a simple infidelity investigation. Even searching for a lost cat had its fair share of risks.
だったらいいのだけれど。
Yukari didn't sound any less tense. It seemed she didn't have much faith in me. Though it was my fault for losing her trust to begin with.
帰るか、ゆかり。
お仕事はもういいの？
年が明けてから帰ってないからな。仕事の方は問題ない。
Well, he seems like a good brother.
これは兄さんが持ってくださいね。
Yukari handed me my clothes, now wrapped in a cloth.
いくら冬とはいえ、これだけ放置していたら匂ってきそうだもの。
Yep, this one was on me too. Huh, interesting. When we were playing as Yukari, it kind of had like a third-person perspective that we were that it was narrating in, but now all of a sudden it switched to first person. If you took the J&R line from Shinjuku to Nishi-Ogikubo and headed due north along the Zenpukuji River, you'd find the Tokisaka residence. Yukari and I had lived there all by ourselves ever since we lost our parents in a plane crash a few years prior. Though honestly, I didn't really spend much time at home to begin with. Yukari opened the door and headed inside.
お洗濯物は脱衣所に置いてくださいね。
その前に着替えてくる。
I left my clothes in the living room and slid open the door to my room. It was freezing, hardly a shock considering the place had been uninhabited all day. I quickly donned a kimono and brought my old clothes back to the living room.
夕飯は鶏鍋でいいかしら？
ああ、任せる。
I mindlessly answered and tried to pass Yukari to take a bath.
お風呂に入りたいのでしたら、ご自分で沸かしてくださいね。
わかってる。
I bundled my kimono up and shivered from the cold as I waited for the gas boiler to start spewing hot water. Well, she definitely is the woman of the house, isn't she? After taking a piping hot bath, I returned to my room to kill some time reading. My thoughts turned to ancient Rome as I flipped through a book about the history of the Gallic Wars. Though I'd read this one much more times than I could begin to count, I felt like I always found something new each time.
夕飯ができましたよ。
Yukari was at the door. She'd changed into a kimono as well. Steam and a rich aroma wafted from an earthenware pot. Within were chicken, scallions, bok choy, crown daisies, and konjac noodles. I had to admit I was a bit disappointed that there weren't any shiitake mushrooms though. In their stead were 2 boiled eggs floating in the broth.
さあ、いただきましょう。
Yukari put her hands together and bowed her head. Though she attended a Catholic school, this side of her was pure Japanese through and through. I dipped the chicken in a small dish of ponzu. The dish exuded a crazy heat in my stomach, warming me from the inside out.
熱燗でも一杯やりたい気分だな。
そんなことを言っても我が家にお酒はありませんよ。
Yukari's face was totally deadpan.
気分だってだけさ。
I talked back as I noisily slurped up the noodles.
ごちそうさん。うまかったよ。
お粗末様でした。
I returned to my room and smoked a cigarette as I leafed through some documents I'd brought home from work. Murders and lies had been constant bedfellows ever since Cain killed Abel in Genesis 4. This very case, the murder of a man by his elder brother, was a testament to just how little mankind had changed since then. Many rich families got into squabbles over their parents' inheritance. Unfortunately, the Tokisakas were not exactly rich, so the only real inheritance our parents left us was his house and mountains of books.
おかげさまで、うちは家族円満だ。
Look at that. Money doesn't buy happiness.
そうですね。
Yukari entered the room and nodded.
そろそろ寝ます。
ああ、おやすみ。
兄さんも夜更かしなどせずに早く眠ってくださいね。
子供じゃないんだから。
おやすみなさい。
Yukari closed the door and left. I stubbed out the stump that was my cigarette in the nearby ashtray.
寝るか。
I got up and rolled my futon out of the closet. A few moments later, I curled up under the covers and sighed. I'd have to report the details of my investigation tomorrow.
明日は日曜か。
Well, whatever. That guy would still be in, knowing him. After all, there was no leisure for the poor, be they detectives or police inspectors. I shuddered off to sleep while regretting the fact that I hadn't brought a bed warmer into the futon with me. January 15th.
やれやれ。
I don't know, should we end it there? We'll go a little bit longer. I heaved a deep sigh and collapsed into my chair as soon as I returned to my office. No sooner did I finish handing in my investigation report than did the police saddle me with another job.
あの野郎。元同僚。
Oh. Ah, fuck. Sure, we used to be buddies in the force and all, but does that bastard think that he makes me his personal handyman or something? I grumbled with a cigarette in my mouth as I checked the document detailing my new job.
世の中は愛も変わらず殺しばかり。
I was gonna drown under all this work at this rate. It seemed there had been a shooting in Shimorenjaku, Mitaka, that had ended with the death of a manager of a small local factory. I figured it was probably the work of some gangsters. A decade had passed since the war, and the reconstruction that followed was still ongoing. However, there just wasn't enough land to build large factories in new residential districts. Thus, some short-sighted individuals on the seedy underbelly of society assumed they could steal the land if they got rid of the landowner.
とはいえ、裏付けも取らないとならないからな。
I got up and put on my coat. Much as I didn't like walking around in the cold, being a detective was all about dealing with the harsher side of life, though that didn't change how it seriously sucked. First order of business was questioning the locals, narrowing down the suspects and investigating with the intent to arrest. It seemed I had another busy year ahead of me. Oh, okay. We're skipping... what was that, like 3 days? I went home after finishing my investigation in Mitaka. A savory aroma drifted from the kitchen. Yukari must have beaten me back.
ただいま、ゆかり。
おかえりなさい。
Yukari poked her head out of the kitchen. Her face looked somewhat pale.
どうしたゆかり。風邪でもひいたのか。
そうではないけれど。
Yukari trailed off and resumed cooking dinner, a glum expression still etched onto her face. Though I was curious, I knew my sister well enough to realize she'd eventually bring it up on her own.
兄さん。
Yukari finally broached the topic right after dinner, just as I'd expected.
何かあったのか。
I set down my cup of coffee.
ええ。部活の後輩のことで、昨晩から家に帰っていないらしくて、心配で。
家出じゃないのか。
It was fairly common for girls her age. Youth had always been about getting worked up over the things that would seem hilariously trivial in the hindsight of adulthood. Damn, I must be getting old myself to be thinking along those lines.
親御さんは捜索願いを出したのか？
それがわからないの。出しているとは思うんだけれど。
だとしたら、あとは警察の仕事だ。
兄さん。
Yukari shot me a steely glare, opening her mouth for a stern admonishment.
いいか？一回の探偵にできることなんてごくわずかなんだ。行方不明者の捜索ならば、人数を多くかけられる警察の方がずっと確実だ。
そうかもしれないけれど。
Come on, you can't turn down your sister like that. Yukari suddenly turned meek just as she was about to counter. She must have gotten my point.
そう心配しなくても、すぐに帰ってくるだろうさ。
ええ。
俺も仕事の合間に調べられるだけ調べてみるから。
よろしくお願いね、兄さん。
I'm guessing the person who went missing was Miss Toko herself. The sun set in the west, casting a vermilion cloak over my surroundings. Now then, where to? Oh, we can actually choose. Okay, cool. Oh, this is cool. It's got like the actual map and everything. List the characters, evidence list, map, correlation chart. Wow. Okay, so this might actually be like a whole investigation thing. Moonworld, Inokashita Park. Let's just go to Moonworld, I guess, right? We've already been to Shinjuku. That's just the shopping district, essentially. Moonworld. The place I headed to was just past the remnants of the black market north of Kichijoji Station. I arrived at my destination, Moonworld. It was a small cafe right outside the shopping district. The joint was highly regarded for its tasty coffee and pastries, by the handful who actually knew of it anyway. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have even been aware of it either if my old friend didn't run the place.
いらっしゃい。あら、Tokisakaくんじゃない。
The woman working the counter smiled when she saw me.
俺じゃ不満なのか？
The woman, one Kyoko Hazuki, shrugged and chuckled drolly.
だってTokisakaくんはコーヒー一杯でいつまでも粘るんですもの。
Wow, ma'am, you're really pretty, you know? Let's see what you say, okay. For all her sarcasm, she was clearly in a good mood.
そのコーヒーを一杯頼む。
ええ、いいわよ。焼き菓子もあるけれど、どう？
いや、もらおうか。
I love myself a working woman. I hastily made a verbal backstep.
ありがとう。
Kyoko brewed up some coffee, engulfing the cafe in a mellow fragrance.
そういえば、さっきまで魚住くんがいたのよ。
やつが。
Uezomi was our mutual longtime friend. He was always dropping by this place.
仕事の途中で寄ったみたいよ。
まあ、あいつも忙しいだろうからな。
I lit a cigarette. Clearly not busy enough to forget to make his habitual sojourn here, though. And that said, I wasn't one to talk, given he was only busy thanks to yours truly. Kyoko set a porcelain cup of coffee in front of me.
お待ちどうさま。
悪いな。
I slurped the steaming coffee. I always took it black, no sugar, no milk, no nothing.
はい、カステラ。好きだったでしょ？
ああ。
I wasted no time taking a bite out of the cake.
コーヒーはブラックなのに、カステラは甘い方が好きなのよね。
ごついなりして砂糖を何杯も入れるやつよりいいだろう。
Not that we knew anyone like that. Definitely not.
あら、飲み方は人それぞれじゃない。
だったら俺の飲み方にもケチをつけるなよ。
つけてないわよ。ただ確認してみただけよ。
Kyoko smiled as she picked up a piece of cake.
今度、新しい従業員を雇うつもりなの。
この閑古鳥が鳴いている店に必要なのか？
10 customers you get a day? Damn!
もう、Tokisakaくんがいない時間は一人だと結構忙しいのよ。
Kyoko pouted.
知り合いの娘さんでね、社会経験を積ませてあげたいんですって。
使えるのか？
よそのお店でお手伝いとかはしたことあるらしいから心配ないと思うわよ。
Then why does she need more real-world experience? Maybe her mother was just the type who wanted her child to know their way around all sorts of jobs.
また何か考え込んでるでしょう。
いや。
I smiled at the sight of Kyoko inflating her cheeks.
仕事のこと？
まあそんなところだ。
I figured it was best to just play it vague.
あまり根を詰めない方がいいわよ。疲れていると正常な判断もできなくなってしまうから。
Kyoko was painfully aware of that, far more so than anyone else. She'd lost her husband 7 years prior, the original owner of Moonworld. He'd worked himself so hard that he ended up in a car crash. The other driver was apparently an American soldier stationed at Green Park in Musashino, only he survived the crash. Death by car accident. That was how the official documentation had reported it. That was all. Just those 4 words. The US military handled the investigation, so I never learned how it turned out even though I was with the police at the time. What's more, they didn't even return Kyoko her husband's body. I could only imagine how much grief that had brought her. Though I'd lost my parents in an accident around the same time as well, it had happened so far away that it hadn't hit quite as hard. However, I was so skeptical about the cause of his death that I tried to use my position in the force to unravel the truth. Sadly, it was a total bust. The US military refused to play ball, and I was even forced to call off the investigation. That was just what it meant to be on the losing end of a war, though maybe it was only a matter of course, considering the incident happened only 4 years after the conflict.
まだ何か考えてる。
Kyoko poked my brow.
いや、随分といい時代になったと思ってな。
いい時代かしら。
Kyoko cocked her head.
少なくとも10年前から比べればよくはなっているだろう。
比べてしまえばそうかもしれないわね。
あの頃の方が楽しかったかもしれないけれどな。
ユキコがいたから。
さあな。
Ah, Yukiko. I brushed aside Kyoko's question and turned away after lighting another cigarette. Alright, I think we're going to go ahead and stop it there. Can I save? Here we go, save. I'm guessing this is supposed to like resemble like a pager, I'd imagine. It's kind of somewhat the vibe it's getting off. Exit. Return to title. Here we go. Okay. So this girl in the picture here is clearly going to be Toko. And I imagine the girl who went missing is also going to be Toko. So this might devolve into us trying to solve the mystery of where the fuck Toko went. Let me see what the Steam let me see. I want to see what the Steam page of this says. Okay, unravel a string of gruesome murders terrorizing Tokyo in this mystery thriller visual novel. The secrets of a case from 6 years prior may just be the key to the current unending cycle of tragedy. And the thing that cracks this woeful world shell may be one girl's smile. Okay. So. Oh yeah, here we go. 10 plus hours of story. Multiple endings. Full voice acting by seasoned professionals. HD assets. So there's Yukari, who's our sister. You know, I'm not going to read anymore. There's Yukari, Toko, and Toko. I do want to eventually read through some of these once we kind of get introduced to everybody. Well, actually, let's see. They give some character descriptions here. Let's see. So Yukari, which is right now our younger sister. She likes to observe and raise insects. She's the younger sister with an age gap. She's a brave but gentle and modest young woman who faithfully supports her brother. The bugs she raises in her room occasionally make her run for it, and sometimes she serves them up as dishes without warning. Jesus Christ. Toko Kuchiki, who is the girl here on the main screen, she likes to sketch and take moonlit walks. She acts like an adult, but is in fact an odd creature, neither really an adult nor a child. Her casual mode of speech seems to contradict her appearance as a refined young woman, and she's always managing to stand apart from the crowd, never letting others dictate how she acts. Feeling an inexpressible sense of uneasiness with her current existence, she hires Tokisaka to find her true self. Huh. Well, obviously we haven't gotten to that yet. Toko, she likes to illustrate picture books. Well, this is the other one, Mizuhara, the friend. Toko's best friend, she sees in her the vision of an ideal lady. She comes from a poorer family compared to the others, and she has a strong inferiority complex. Due to this, she despises the other students, her mother, and even herself. She would rather Tokisaka, who's suddenly shown up in their lives and has started building a rapport with Toko, keep his distance from Toko. Tsuzuriko Yosomiya, who is Yukari's friend, she likes to make dojinshi. She's very cheerful and sprightly. She may seem like the total opposite of Yukari, but they actually get along very well and are best friends. She made her writing debut in literary magazines and has contributed to articles to some less classy rags as well, which she of course keeps secrets from the academy. She was unwillingly given the nickname Tojiko by Tokisaka after he decided that Tsuzuriko was too hard to pronounce. Thank you. I was literally about to say I'm constantly tripping over her name. Okay, Kyoko Hazuki, who is the bartender we just met. She likes to make sweets. She's a widow whose cafe Moonworld is located near Kochijo Station. She's known Tokisaka for a long time, and they can count each other as true friends and confidants, intimately familiar with each other's lives. They both lost someone dear to them. Her cafe has a lot of regular customers and seems to be profitable. And there seems to be a couple others that we have not quite gotten to yet. Okay, so pretty interesting. So, I mean, just from that description, clearly Toko is not one of these victims. But it does make me kind of curious as to how specifically these characters who are in this Catholic high school even become involved with a detective trying to solve a bunch of murder mysteries. So that'll be pretty interesting to find out. First impressions of the game, though, the music is kind of giving me like Clannad vibes almost. I mean, obviously the art is nice. It's really good. I like it. The backgrounds and everything are really nice. I really don't have any complaints. And of course, you actually get some really good quality voice acting as well, which saves a lot of strain on my own voice. So that's awesome too. After kind of getting reconfirmed with what exactly the story is going to be about, though, I'm definitely interested in seeing where this goes. Because, you know, it kind of looks as though this is going to be a deal where, you know, we're going to have to, how do you say, it seems like it's going to be a deal where we're going to have to, like, collect evidence, kind of like a, what is the game? Like Ace Attorney, right? Like, we're going to have to do it sort of like that. So we'll see, though. That's going to be for me for this time, though. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video and tell me in the comment section below what you'd like to see me play next. If you enjoyed this video or any other videos or series on my channel, then then go ahead and hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you'll be notified when one of those videos comes out. I cannot talk today. Anyways, that's it for me, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!